which we have heard, which we have seen, and our hands have handled concerning the word of the life. John 1:1.
Welcome, boys and girls, once again to the program Walking Through God's Word. Once again, we're going to go through the Bible and see what special story God has for us today. Last program, we were talking about Noah and the special task that God had for him. And did you know that God has a special work for each one of you? Well, Noah's special task was to build an ark. But before we start, let's say a little prayer. Dear Father, thank you so much that you have a special work for each one of us to do. Please show us as we study your word what that is and give us the strength to do it. And we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Okay. Now, when the world first was made, it was just so beautiful. There were these beautiful rolling green hills with these big, huge, majestic trees that were just laden with all kinds of delicious fruit. And the fragrance of thousands of flowers perfumed the air. And it was just so beautiful. But we saw last time how Satan came into the world. He was determined that he was going to destroy this world. And after more than 1,000 years, God was so sad as he saw all the violence, all the terrible sin that had come into the world, and he decided that he was going to have to start over. And Lino, I wonder if you would read for us Luke 17, verse 26.
Just as it was in the day of Noah, so will it be the day of the sons of men.
That's one of the things that the Bible tells us. Just like it was in the days of Noah, that's how it's going to be in the last days. And you know, it said, the Bible, that the imagination of their hearts was evil continually. And if we look at television today, isn't that what we see? All the shows, they just show so much violence. They show killing and stealing and lying and being disrespectful to parents. I could just go on and on. And the news, isn't it awful, some of the things we hear on the news? And so we have to remember, we have to learn the lessons. The things that happened to Noah are going to be repeated at the end of the earth, except that the next time, instead of a flood of water, it is going to be fire. But here we see that God did not want to destroy all his creation, and so he thought of a special plan. What was that?
About ark.
Yes, he said, I want someone to build me an ark. And as he looked around, who did he find?
Noah.
Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. And so he came to Noah and he said, Noah, I have a special task for you. I want you to build an ark. But you know what I really like about God? He doesn't just say, okay, do it. He gives us very specific instructions. And that's why if every day we will read this Bible, we will find specific instructions for our life. And so let's see what some of these specific instructions were. Emma, can you read for me Genesis 6? Let's see, what verse was it? Starting with verse 14.
So make yourself an ark of cypress wood, and make rooms in it, and coat it with pitch inside and out. This is how you are to build it. The ark is to be 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. Make a roof for it, leaving below the roof an opening of 1 cubit high all around. Put a door in the side of the ark, and make lower, middle, and upper decks.
Okay, so one of the first instructions we saw was that God wanted this boat to be made of wood. It was probably a type of cypress wood, a very hard wood, because you know what? God wanted this boat to last a long, long time. In fact, He wanted it to last till our generation, so that maybe someday we will see that ark and we will know for sure that this story was true. And we see that they were going to put pitch on the inside and the outside. Do you know what pitch is?
It's a color.
It's something that keeps the water from coming in. Yes.
Trees.
Yes. And it's kind of like a tar, and it does not let the water in. So it was going to be very waterproof.
Like a silicone.
Yes. And you're going to have a lot of fun today measuring it out to see what really is 300 cubits look like. 300 cubits long, and how wide was it?
50 cubits.
50 cubits wide, and how high?
30 cubits.
30 cubits. And as we read a little bit
big.
farther down, it was going to have like a long window, all the length of it, and that light would shine into the center of the ark, and that way everything inside the ark would have light. And you know, those people were very, very intelligent people. And so we can't even imagine some of the technology. Sometimes we think just in our age we have all this technology, but they were so much more intelligent than we are. They probably had some fantastic technology for that ark. And we see that it had 3 stories, a lower story, a second story, and a third story. Now, what were they going to put in this ark?
Animals?
Let's let Arthur read that. That's Genesis 6, verses 18 to 21.
But with thee will I establish my covenant, and thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons and thy wife, and thy sons' wives with thee. And of every living thing of all flesh, 2 of every sort shalt thou bring into the ark, to keep them alive with thee. They shall be male and female, of fowls after their kind, and of cattle after his kind. 2 of every sort shall come into thee, to keep them alive. And take thou into thee of all food that is eaten, and thou shalt gather it to thee, and shall be for food to thee and for them.
Okay, very good. So we see that God was telling them, Noah, you're going to go in the ark. You're going to take your wife. How many sons did Noah have?
3.
3. And their wives, they were going to go in. And of course, God was hoping that many, many more people would come. And God wanted to save as many animals as possible. So He wanted one of every kind of animal. Now, I wonder if Noah thought, oh my, how am I going to get all these animals? How am I going to catch them? Find every kind of little bug, every kind of little bird, every kind of animal. Trying to catch a lion wouldn't be very easy, would it? But that's what God had told him to do, and that's what he wanted to do. And of course, they were going to be on this ark for quite a while, and so they were going to have to get food. So right away, Noah set to work. That's what I really like. Noah believed what God said, and he gave us such an example. Right away, he started finding people who could help him build this ark. And you know what? He used all of his money, all of his possessions, everything he had, so that he could build this ark for God. And right away, he started warning people. He said, a flood is coming. Now, did you know that at that time, there was no rain? We find that in Genesis 2, verse 5. It said that God would just send like a mist on the ground, and there had been no rain, like a dew. But Noah believed that somehow God was going to cover the whole earth with water. Now, there's one more thing that I want to mention about this ark. The Bible says that there was one door, and that is really significant. Wendelito, will you please read for us John 10, verse 9?
I am the door.
by me. If any man enter in, he shall be saved, and shall go in out and find pasture.
So there we see Jesus telling the people years later, I am the door, and if anyone will come through me, they will be saved. And that is what the ark was trying to teach us as well. There was only one door into that ark, and whoever would believe what God said and go through that door would be saved. And so today we need to remember that too. Jesus is the only way that we can be saved. Okay, now you all are going to go and have fun measuring the ark. So we'll see you a little later.
Hi, I'm so glad to be back. Well, Auntie Becky told you about measurements. Are you excited about it, huh?
Yes.
Would you like to know how to measure that?
Yes.
Well, we have to go back to history. We have to get some history lessons. Well, let's open my computer and let's see. First of all, we're going to talk about mountains of Ararat.
Where the ark rested.
Exactly. Well, if you look at this mountain, you see it turn, the image is turning, but you can see something. There are two peaks, they are volcanic peaks, and the rest, it's a lot of mudslide. You see, everywhere you go, you see that there's, it looks like mudslide, but actually it's lava that went all over the place. Well, this for us is very important to know in measurements, okay? Well, look, this is what we see right now that looks like a boat. Well, it looks like a boat for you?
No.
No. Well, it has two peaks here, but right now in this position, in this picture, you won't see it as a boat. But what about this one? Would it look like a boat now?
Yes.
Yes, you see, this is the rear of the boat, this is the front, and this is the rib timber. We know what the timbers that were on the side. So, well, let's see. Now, a couple years ago, they had this image. They saw it from an airplane, first of all. And they said, well, look at that. Look at that in the mountains. It looked like a boat. Well, they had some measurement on it, and I will show you some picture about, and they abandoned the whole thing. We'll talk about this a little later. But right now, you see, it looks very much like a shape. Depends on how you take the pictures. Well, let's see if this, what they saw, and they think is a boat, it's indeed Noah's Ark. One of it has to be exactly the measurements, yeah? Well, if I go back in the picture, you can tell that this boat shape, it's kind of widely open, like as if you would put a boat like this, and then it would split, and then it would open a little bit. It would crack open. That's how it looks. So for this, I don't think the width would be a good measurement to take. But let's see if the length of it would be, okay? So let's follow this presentation a little bit just to see what he says about measurements.
For example, if you go to the British Museum, these are Egyptian cubit measurements. There's a stone one, there's a wooden one. And the plaque here tells you quite plainly, the Royal Egyptian cubit is equal to 20.62 inches or 52.4 centimetres. It's well known how big the Egyptian cubit was. Now, if we look at this site in Turkey, here it is here. It's 157.1 metres long, or 515.5 feet from end to end. Now, the thing is, if you take the Egyptian cubit, which obviously is what Ham used, guess what? This site happens to be exactly, not roughly, but exactly from end to end, 300 of those Egyptian cubits, which obviously became the long cubit that the Hebrews used, which they then lost when they went off to Babylon and came back. They adopted a Babylonian version. But until then, the cubit that the Hebrews used, that was used in the Bible, was that old cubit. And this site is 300 exactly of those, and that fits the Bible, because the Bible says it was 300 cubits long.
Now you learn that in order to find 300 cubits, they used what kind of measurement?
The Egyptian cubit.
No, Egyptian cubit. Now we know that Moses was a Jew, yeah? And what do you think? What kind of measurement he would use? Because the 300 cubits, a description of the ark as 300 cubits was written by Moses, yeah? It wasn't written by Noah. Okay, so let's put that in order. Noah didn't write down how long the boat shape would be, yeah? It was Moses who wrote it down.
Why? How would he know?
Well, God revealed to him everything of the past. Because before the flood, we know that people would tell the history, would tell the story of what happened before to their kids. And they have the very good memory, and they didn't have to write it down. Or even if they write it down, we don't have anymore anything that would tell what happened before Noah, because the flood came and, destroyed everything. But Moses had to write it down, yeah? And Moses wrote it down as 300 cubits. Now, let's go back. Where did Moses get his school?
In Egypt. In Egypt.
In Egypt. Where exactly?
In the Pharaoh's palace.
In the Pharaoh's palace. So what do you think they used? They used the Jewish measurement?
No, they used the Egyptian cubit.
They used the Egyptian cubit, which we call it also feet, but that's it, the Egyptian cubit. So we have to use the measurement that Moses was used to it, otherwise we're going to have different measurements. Okay, so let's see. Here are some pictures about measurements. People took, like these bands, and they lined them up to make sure that the measurements are correct. So as I told you, the width of it is not perfect because they feel like the boat just opened. But the length of it has exact 300 Egyptian cubit. Now, in this measurement, exactly what they did, they went with the scanner, and with the scanner, they measured where the timbers are. So you can tell that, they can measure exactly the timber. So, they put like little rocks on this in order to know it. And we have another picture from the back. You can see the whole thing. And that's why you can see that it was switched to this side. Also, if you remember the picture, if we go back to the couple first pictures, here you see there is a little rock in the middle, which they think that the boat got hooked in this rock and then twisted, and so that rock should not be part of the boat. So that's why the boat is a little bit broken, but the length of it is exactly 300 cubits. Now that would be very interesting to find in the mountains of Ararat a boat shape and to be exactly 300 cubits. Wouldn't be that something that you would have a question? Well, look here.
The story began in 1957 during the Cold War when aerial photos taken of eastern Turkey while searching for Soviet missile bases revealed a strange boat-shaped formation in the mountains about 6,300 feet above sea level. Life magazine reported on the story after an expedition from the United States went to the site in 1960. Blowing holes in the strange formation, the members of the team came away with the conclusion that there was nothing there of any archaeological interest.
David Fussell, that I told you, and Ron Wyatt went back to this place and they started to measure it out, and they found it fascinating because they used the Egyptian cubit and that measured exactly that. Now, let's make math. Who is good in math here? You. Okay. Well, 300 cubits times 52.4, how much would that be?
Well, I can't do it right now. But
Oh, okay. Well, let's see. It is 157.4, I think, or 2, I don't know. Exactly, because I learned it. So it's about 150 meters. Would you imagine how long is 150 meters?
Wow.
Is it long?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is long. Well, probably nowadays we can see longer boats too. They make longer
Yeah.
boats. But for that time, it was a very big boat. Now see, they used these scanners and they determined, according to the scanner, that you see this is basically the structure of the boat. You see, so it has compartments. They can tell that it has compartments, and there it has a long hallway. This is what they measured with the scanner, okay? So this is the timber on the side when Ron Wyatt and his friend tried to scratch the dirt that was on the top to make sure that they find this thing. And you know what? Everything there is petrified. We're going to learn about the petrification next turn that we have a meeting. What I wanted to show you right now is that in Kentucky, in USA, one guy said, I'm going to build a replica of the boat. And actually, right now, you can go and see it. Well, this boat did not use the measurement of the Egyptian cubit. So what do you think? It's how much? Do you remember what I told you?
60.
160, exactly. Well, the Egyptian cubit would be 157. Now the Jewish cubit, it was a little bit longer, so that was 160. So he used the Jewish cubit, and so for this it has 160 meters. And this is a picture from far off, and you can tell here that inside people walking around. These pictures were taken on inauguration, the day that they started the museum. And look how many people are watching it, but look how many compartments for animals, and it's a long hallway. And
Did they have animals inside?
no, they didn't put animals inside for the museum. They had to really take care of that. And plus, the animals smell. So you see how many compartments, and they had to have water. So they put like pictures of water there, and all kinds of things. Well, I think that is all the pictures I have for today. But I would like to measure the boat. So I have taken a measuring tape, and we can go outside and measure it just before we finish it, so we can see how much 157 meters, huh? Would you like that?
Yes.
But before we do that, do you have any questions? Yes, go ahead.
The ark was longer, right?
It was 300 cubits, as the Bible said, which we learned that is 157 meters.
So when the Egyptian made their cubits, the Jewish copied from them.
Yes, they just used a little longer. That's a different measurement. You know how we have right now, nowadays we have the metric system. We learn meter, centimeter, kilometer, and all this. And we have the other measurements, which is foot, yard, and so there are different measurements, that's all. But in this case, the Jewish cubit was a little tiny bigger than the Egyptian cubit. So that's why if you measure it, it doesn't come out exactly.
Did the ark rest at that exact spot, or did it slide on the mountain?
Well, as I showed you in the beginning, I wanted you to see the Mount Ararat because it looks like all this lava and everything. So we don't know exactly where it landed, but definitely it is so many signs that it slided down. And we're going to learn about that next time when we're going to learn about petrification process. Would you be curious about that?
Yes.
Do you have any questions for today? No more?
I read it.
Okay, well, we're going to go outside now and we're going to measure that boat, okay? For you, I hope you're going to follow us outside and see how nice it's going to be when we're going to measure it. See you next time.
Bye.